Mr. Will Gordon. How we
Hey,
doing, brother?
what's up, Eric? How we doing, man? It's great to see you again.
Yeah, you as well. I had a great time the first time around.
Oh
And
yeah, it was a blast. I loved it.
yeah, so here we go. I think we'll start off with like a high level. You've been through some shit, so have
I have
I.
been through some shit. Yep.
And this podcast is about intrinsic motivators going into the depths of hell, let's say, and spinning upwards into something bigger and better.
Oh yeah.
So give us a little background on what you've been through.
All right. Well, so basically, my life was really normal. I grew up super athletic family. A lot of pressure on us as kids. I'm the youngest of four brothers. And so constant competition all the time. But I was like a really creative dude, and I feel like my voice wasn't being heard, and I was kind of being forced to do a lot of stuff I didn't do. So kind of built up a lot of loss of identity. Didn't like who I was. I feel like I couldn't express myself genuinely, and then eventually that started. I started to cope with alcohol, and it was pretty manageable for my good 20s. But I started noticing like I was losing friendships and stuff like that because of it, and I was treating people poorly, and then it got bad, and then like all of a sudden. Next thing I know, I'm losing jobs. As I'm a teacher, so I'm losing jobs, and it was just a nightmare, man. And then next thing I know, I'm like sitting in my car and feeling my liver, and it's big and it hurts, and I'm like, oh shit, like this is a big deal. And I kind of knew it was coming because I tried to get sober a few times before that, and I just couldn't do it because I wasn't looking for the support, and next thing I know, man, trying to just do it on my own. And next thing I know, I'm feeling the pain in my liver as I'm driving. And my wife looks at me and she's like, you got to go in and get your blood checked or whatever. And then I went in, man. And then next thing I know, they're like, oh my God, your liver is like completely dead. It's like shattered. Like there's no fixing it. Like you basically drank yourself to death. And that's what happened, man. I drank myself to death. I had 2 weeks left of my life, the doctor said. So it was like a really scary time. And then next thing I know, I'm in a hospital for about a year and a half, just trying to figure it all out. And I got put on the transplant list, and finally, once they said there was 2 weeks left of my life, that's when they really put things into gear, and they started searching around at the hospital in Western Massachusetts here. And this doctor saved my life. The whole team saved my life. I went in, had the liver transplant. It was brutal. I was 245 pounds. I went down to like 200, 210, right after the surgery. The surgery took about like three days almost because there was so many complications. I was so sick. Went to bed on Monday, woke up on a Thursday. So it was just a nightmare, man. And there's so much to the story, but I've told it a million times, but it's just so crazy that it happened. And then when the liver, I woke up from that, they started noticing that my kidneys weren't waking up either. So they were like, well, now you need a kidney transplant rather. And so I had to wait for that. And while I'm waiting on that, I'm on dialysis so I was on dialysis for a year after the liver transplant itself. So it was just a nightmare, man. Then I had bile duct issues. I had to do a surgery there. Then I had my colon burst in the rehab process of the liver transplant. So then I had to get my stomach. My stomach exploded. So what they had to do is take my colon into my stomach and desever it and put it into an ileostomy bag. So I had that for 6 months, and then they had to reverse the ileostomy bag because I didn't want to go to the bathroom the rest of my life in a bag. Who wants to do that at 30, 35 years old, 36 at the time? And I waited the 6 months. Finally, thank God, they fixed it. They did call it takedown ileostomy surgery, where they take your colon, sew into your stomach, and they sew it back up, and that worked. Thank Christ that worked, because that would have been a nightmare. And then I waited for the kidney transplant, which was another 6 months after that. So I'm still relatively, I'm not even a year out from the kidney transplant, and but I've been sober since January 27th, 2023. So I'm coming up on 2 years in a little bit, which is exciting shit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm in recovery myself.
Yeah.
And, that's one thing that bonds us together, I think,
Mm-hmm.
going through those experiences. And so prior to being in the hospital, fighting for your life, literally.
Yeah.
Did you seek out recovery before that?
Pre-transplant?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I tried to do I was white knuckling it. So the answer is no. I was above it. I thought at the time, I thought, alcoholics were kind of weak people. They were people with no direction, or they didn't have the willpower, which is coincidentally the name of my podcast. But they didn't have the willpower to kind of get through the to get through it. And that, and now that I'm in recovery, I couldn't have been further from the truth. Like, you have to get a recovery group immediately, right? When you notice that you have no control of it anymore, or it's just like having detrimental effects to your relationships, health, everything, spiritual, mind, everything. So no, I did not. And that's what pretty much killed me. I had my wife, obviously, who was a huge supporter, like the love of my life, the angel of my life. She saved my life, honestly. But she wasn't an alcoholic. She had no issues whatsoever when it came to substance abuse issues. And she didn't know like the suffering and the anguish that I was going through. So it all eventually came to a head. And that's when I had to get it done, the transplant itself. But yeah, man, the recovery thing, I really effed it up, man. I didn't realize the importance of the accountability factor and being able to seek support when you're struggling and you're suffering, because I didn't realize just how important that step would have been if I just paid attention to it and was more mindful of the whole process.
Yeah, I relate to that because I played pro baseball and I was defined by that. I went into filmmaking and I was defined by that. And I never looked in the mirror and said, Eric Fisher, who are you as a person, right? So my identity was gone. And then to it wasn't gone, it wasn't understood. I didn't have awareness of it. And then my ego and my pride, I can do it all, and then before you know it, I drank myself into the hospital with needles all through my body, with liver damage as well.
Yep.
And it's interesting for people like us to look back and say, where was that white flag when I needed it, right?
Yeah,
where was, because people go away too. That's the other thing. And alcoholics, I'm sure you were hiding it from your
God,
wife.
was I hiding it? That's what I was. That was my MO, was just how much can I hide it and not get caught with it in me or seen on me or in my possession. That's how sneaky I was with it. I was like a closet shut-in monk, like person when it came to my alcoholism. I just wanted my bottle and just myself in a room, dark lights, and just that's it. That's how lonely and like hopeless that I was with my drinking. It was some scary stuff, man.
Did you have a moment where, so you had your surgery before you went into any type of rehab whatsoever? It was more of an ER type situation.
So the way it went down, man, was I did 125 days sober the first time in 2020. So when I went in 2020, my wife was like, "You look like shit. Like I was gaining weight. My skin looked papery. My eyes were starting having a tint of yellow, which is eventually would become jaundice. So I went in and they were like, "You really have to stop the drinking completely, or else you're gonna be back here, or else you're gonna be in a grave." And I listened to him. Momentarily, I left the hospital and I said, okay, I'm going to change everything I'm doing. So I changed what I was eating. I started going back to the gym. I quit alcohol 100%. But man, like just because you quit and you get sober, like that doesn't fix the problems. Like things are still going to be there, and as they were, like just as you left them the day before you got sober. So, and I didn't realize that like the amount of pressure that would kind of unfold on top of me as the sober journey progressed, and all my problems were still there. So I had a huge fight because I wasn't making enough money teaching, and I was bouncing from job to job. And my wife, we had a huge argument, and then it was like one of the worst ones ever that we ever had in our marriage. And that's what was the trigger. That's what set me off down the to drink again. And like as if like riding a bike, man, I fell off the bike and I just got back on the wagon. And fell off the wagon like like unbelievably bad. It just smashed my face off the wagon. It's how bad of a fall it was. And next thing I know, I'm getting a transplant. So it was like 0 to a thousand billion miles an hour or whatever, with the drinking, because I didn't have the tools in the tool shed. I didn't have any of that, other things that I learned in recovery out, since then. Before then, like, it was just chaos. I just had no direction. I had no one to lean, no one to hold me accountable. No, I was just a lost soul, man. That's how it was,
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand as well that when we're struggling, if you're the one struggling, or you have someone in your life, a loved one that's struggling, they have to be willing to completely surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's kind of a cliche term, but it's true. Because if our ego and our pride is still pumping through us, like, I've got this, I can handle this, I can conquer it, it's me, myself, and I can do it all, we're doomed. We're on the clock. And I was on the clock, you were on the clock, but we weren't able to go satellite view with it, or get on the balcony and move ourselves around without emotion and say, okay, well, the road's splitting. Which way do I go? Which path do I take? If we take the wrong path, we're dead. If we take the right path, we're going to be okay. But without that self-awareness, we're ongoingly struggling. Did you have, so throughout that process, did you have a moment of complete clarity where you absolutely said, I'm done? Was it after it had to have been after surgery.
Oh yeah. So it was, believe it or not, it was the second I regained consciousness.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
you're staring death in the face.
Oh,
literally.
Dude, I said goodbye to my father. I said, I love you. Like, I honestly, I was that sick. My MELD score was 40. Your MELD score is basically it goes from 0 to 40. And typically people range in like the 6-7 level if they're drinking, like the occasional drinker or whatever, they're probably like around there. But I was I maxed it out. I maxed out the MELD score, which is mean your liver's just dead. So yeah, man, well, shit, I just lost my train of thought.
Just like that. I know you had an aha moment because you're in the hospital and you're saying goodbye to those that you love most, and you're young. So you're staring this mortality in the mirror. And then I was asking about an aha moment.
Yeah. So exactly. So, yes. So once I woke up from the transplant itself, I couldn't believe that I was still like here, like in this realm of reality that we're all living in. And I took a deep breath, like looked around, like tears have started flowing from my eyes, and my wife is staring like right at me, and she's crying, and it's like one of the most emotional experiences of my life because we're so happy that I'm still alive. It was a lot of, like, people did not think that I was going to make it because I was that sick. I was a week, 2 weeks max away from certain death. So it was just a miracle. And like, what do you do when you get a second chance at life, man? You don't fuck it up. You do it right the second go at it, right? And that's what I did. I looked at my wife, looked her right in the eye. I said, Maiza, I am done. And I meant it in the most authentic, genuine, powerful way that's possible, like humanly possible, to express such an idea of just complete sobriety of the rest of my life. And honestly, I thought that it would fade. But no, man, the gift of life, from being a 2-time transplant, is just too important. It's too much on the line when it comes to my wife's serenity, her peace, my relationship with others, family, the clarity of a sober mind. Like this, it just outweighs all the things that you get from drinking or whatever substance you're putting in your body. That's obviously not a healthy one. It just totally trumps that in all aspects of life. So yeah, I mean, I made that commitment and I am not looking back. But I do. It doesn't, just because of that doesn't mean like if those cravings aren't, and they're not all the time, they still are there. Especially the better I look, the better I feel, everything like that. It's very easy to fall back into old habits because old habits die hard. But no, man, I'm dedicated to this. There's no friggin' way I'm going back.
Yeah. Now you're feeling good.
Now I'm feeling good, man. Yeah.
Can we talk for a moment about your wife? Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for people to understand this, right? Because it's easy to love somebody when things are going well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a damn challenge to love somebody and not only love them, because it depends on how you define love. You can define, I can love you from a distance.
Yeah.
I can love you from afar and say that's his problem or that's her problem. I love you, but I'm back here. I'll accept you back when you heal yourself, right? That's what happened to me. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people going through addiction.
Yeah.
And people leave. One thing I've learned, I'm sure you can either comment or share this view, is when we go away for a while, we find out who really does love us, who's in our corner unconditionally.
100%.
And I don't know if and I don't know at a root level if I believe in unconditional love, because if I'm married and I show up and I'm like, babe, I've been having an affair.
Yeah.
Now that love's probably conditional.
Yeah, there's got to be some conditions,
right
in some places,
in some places, right? So we can say that here with a smile, but she stuck by you.
Yeah.
Whatever comes to your mind, like that's a very special woman.
Oh my God,
that's a strong woman.
Strong woman, the strongest, honestly, the strongest. I mean, the shit that she put up with for our whole, I mean, when we first met, so I met her in 2016, around St. Patrick's Day, 2016. She was an au pair from Brazil. So she was already like this beautiful, right, interesting person from the jump. So I fell in love with her like immediately, I really did. And I was in that, and when I met her, that's when I was kind of going up and up. I was like working out. I was like doing well as a teacher and stuff like that. But I was still hiding my alcoholism to the best of my ability, but still being like a functional alcoholic, even though that word sucks. It's a stupid word. And I was maintaining everything I had to maintain in my life. But when she came in, and then we got more comfortable, and like 6 months went by, and then, as relationships do, like then you start to really become comfortable to people around you, and you start letting your guard down more and becoming more you. And in that process of becoming more vulnerable and open with who I am, she started picking up on bad habits. And one of those bad habits was how much I was drinking. And once that second year of our relationship happened, that's when things got really bad, because I started stop taking care of myself, which a lot of guys will do. They get like the dad bod, whatever, which is fine. That's not like going to kill you or anything. Well, maybe it will, but in my personal scenario here, it started to make things a lot easier for me to just drink. And she started picking up on those. And then next thing I know, she's finding the bottles that I'm hiding. I was hiding a lot of bottles around, and she would find them, and there'd be no a justification for the reasoning of why I'm having bottles like hiding under my passenger side door car and stuff like that, in bathrooms and all that stuff. So she would catch me, and we'd have like a huge argument, and then it would be like a genuine argument, like what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, like I'm kind of, it's like the only thing that's keeping me, my anxiety at bay. It's the only thing that's keeping me like going, and I don't know how to stop. And she's like, well, okay, let's get you some help. But I still was like, nope, I got it. I can figure it out. And, but yeah, anyways, back to the point of her, like, unconditional love, which really for her, I think it is, minus the cheating,
right.
Of course. But yeah, it's, she is probably, I honestly do believe that God, and I do believe in like a higher power. I do believe in a creator of everything. And I do believe that either like God or whatever, the higher power, put her in my life on purpose to be that rock that I needed, because I was too insecure and too unaware and not willing to make the sacrifices needed to maintain our relationship. But now that I have been sober, and with the clarity of a sober mind, our relationship is just flourishing, and we're all constantly working on it. Whereas in the past, we were just constantly working on me. But now it feels good to be kind of have a two-way street, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a great story. I think that should be encouraging for anybody out there who's playing a supporting role, because provided there's no violence,
Yeah, there's
and
never that. No.
yeah, provided, and there wasn't any violence in
No,
my
they were
case either.
shouting, yelling, really bad, some really bad fights with yelling and stuff like that, and like throwing things or whatever. But nothing. I never laid my hand on her. That's just not me. But yeah, it a lot. But you do hear that a lot. But yeah, no, that's just not my being. But I let her down in almost worse ways sometimes, man. I would like forget everything. I would be late for dates. I would show up like shit faced, for no reason whatsoever. It's just the mere fact of me just wanting to escape reality because I hated who I was, and I hated like I didn't have a good job. I wasn't making any money. And all those things just compounded on one on itself. And then the drinking just, got involved with that to the point where it was just all I could do was just drink. Cause that's all that's only how I could function. Only way I could function was just by having alcohol in my system. And when it wasn't, that's when things got actually worse, because I would get chaotic. I would get stressed. I would blow up. I would leave and stuff like that. Like so juvenile, the way I was acting, it was just like pathetic, the things I was doing. But yeah, I mean, she knew though I was struggling, and she knew that I genuinely was a good person, like underneath all that. And I mean, she wouldn't have stayed if it was otherwise, right? So, but yeah, her determination towards helping me get through it was just remarkable, man. Like I do not deserve this woman whatsoever. She is just an angel on earth that I was so blessed to have come into my life.
Yeah, that's special.
Yeah,
That's special. It's somebody you can lean on who you know is going to be there for you day in and day
man,
out.
it's huge.
And we're creatures of us humans. We're creatures of connection and community.
Yeah.
Like you can take the most nihilistic, introverted predator who's in jail and put him in isolation, solitary confinement, and that's the worst torture that you can give to somebody, because there's nobody else to talk to, and our brain just goes wild, and then it starts to hallucinate and deteriorate. And without that connection and support, which is a challenge for people who are supporting the addict,
Oh, it's brutal.
because
It's
brutal.
like the more love you give them, like the worse it gets. Almost, it feels like like the more love. Like, it's like the thing they need the most is to get to a boiling point of just, I can't live with myself anymore. I have to change. And unfortunately for me, that was a goddamn liver transplant. I wouldn't wish that hell on anyone, but yeah, that's sometimes what it takes to change. And that was my story. I wish it wasn't. And, I'm sure I just jeopardized how long I'll live for the rest of my life because of the heavy doses of immunosuppressant medication that I have to get on, that I'm on constantly, every 12 hours, like crazy amounts of meds. So it's, that's just like, that's love, man. Like that's some serious, intense love that she gave me. Crazy.
Yeah. So now that you're on the other side of this,
Yeah.
I know you've done some deep dives into to realms and psychology and spirituality and other elements. So where are you now? Like, what drives you on a day in and day out basis, where you get up out of bed and you're like, man, it's going to be a good one today?
Oh man. So I always like to frame it like that question with, I always put it in this perspective, is like when you're little and the world is big and exciting and there's so many things to explore, that ever since I woke up and from the transplant itself, and I swore off alcohol forever, I've just been a different person, man. I just pursue anything of interest, anything I'm curious about whatsoever. It can be the most meaningless thing, but it usually is not. It's actually something very kind of in depth and very difficult to wrap your head around. But that's what I love the most. So yeah, I get up, man. The morning that they call it the hour of power. The first half hour of your day, the last half hour of your night should always have mindful intentions that you need to start practicing, because you'll notice that, like, this is my little gratitude journal that I have here. I use it for like everything. And I get up and I start cranking out like what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to be alive, dude. Like this was like a second shot at this. Like, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm not going to mess this up. I'm grateful to have air in my lungs. I'm grateful that my wife didn't leave me. I'm grateful that I can afford like groceries. I'm grateful that my mother is still here. Just anything that you're grateful for. And then all of a sudden, like at the end of the page, man, you're like, I feel great. Like, this is awesome. What a great way to start the day. And then I start putting out like little intentions of like, okay, what do I want to get done today? And I make them like very I make them small and manageable. I don't make them too big because then you get burnt out. So I just make those goals down and I just try to hit on them. And I have like crazy ADHD. So, I make sure that I'm actually making the notes and checking off the boxes and things like that. So I'm following through with the practice. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the more excited you get. Like the night before the next day that I have, the next day, I have things that I want to get done that next day, and then I think about it at night, and then I think of like different ways of how I can approach it and get those things accomplished. And that was like the beginning of my channel. That's like how I started it, with like that intention. It was just an idea, and now it's kind of blossomed to something a lot more than just awesome.
Yeah, I think what I relate to that. I mean, I journal as well, and if we can button the beginning and the end of our day together, right? Because every new day is a new birth in a way, right? And
Yep.
that's some Stoic philosophy right there. Is like
every new day is a birth. Is that what you said?
Yeah, every new day is a birth, and the previous day is a death. So we're all moving to death, no matter. That's one thing that we know is a guarantee.
Yep.
And a lot of people will say, like, the only thing that we have full control over, or freedom, pure freedom, is looking up at the stars. And there's an aha when we look up into the night sky, let's say, right?
Yes.
There's this feeling of wonder, to your point, childlike curiosity.
Yes.
Right. And then with the journaling piece, starting small, manageable, you said, manageable little steps, Jacob ladder that thing, one step at a time. Because and I had to learn this the hard way through addiction, because I'm an entrepreneur and I like to explore and I like to do big things, supposedly.
Yeah, you do, man. I mean, your background's completely fascinating, man. Like going from fun. MLB, like major league, you're a major league baseball player, to Hollywood, to producing. Like, you trial by fire, man. You really hit you've really checked a lot of boxes in your life, even before the addiction, right? I mean,
yeah, but I didn't check the most important one through those endeavors, was my own box for my own self-identity, because what could things have been like if I knew who I was more concretely?
Sure.
And it starts with those little tiny steps, because there's humility in that. And because if we think that we want to accomplish something big, and a lot of times that creates like cognitive dissonance, frustration, and a little confusion, anxiety, that burn in our chest, and we don't even know where to start. So then we're procrastinating. We don't know that first step. So there's humility in aiming low. Otherwise, that's our ego and our pride working on us, and we don't get anything done just because we're busy doesn't mean we're productive.
Yeah, Eric, you said that on my show too. The humility of aiming low. What do you mean by that? Do you mean like just making like little tiny, like manageable goals throughout the day?
Small, tiny little steps, right? Because if I think I'm too good to do the smallest tiny little things, like pick up my socks, or like the small things in life, right? Like make my bed every morning, and which is a popularized kind of term,
because everyone has
like
bed,
make your bed every morning, but it's true.
True.
It's true. And so, if I think that I'm too good to do the small things, I'm never going to do anything great.
Yes. That's how you get there. You go. Now it just clicked completely. Yeah. If you're if you're above like doing like the dishes or laundry or that kind of stuff, you're just gonna think, if you can't even handle a 5-minute task, like how are you gonna handle like running a business? How are you gonna handle doing well at a job? How are you gonna handle doing well in your family relationships? That dynamic. Like, how are you gonna do that if you can't even pick up the goddamn bedroom, right?
Yeah. When I was in the film industry producing, I would interview for kids out of college. I was in LA, so it's UCLA and USC primarily. And I went to Cal State Northridge, so I would pull some students from there. Right there you go. I'd pull some students from their film department, but a lot of these kids would interview and they'd say, well, I want to produce, but they don't understand. They're trying to jump too much too soon.
Yeah.
It's not to say you won't be able to produce, but you got to start where I started, and that's getting the producer coffee to learn to pick up the layout board and the cables and to ask a lot of questions on a movie set. I mean, that's what I did. And this is post baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I was picking up cable for people working for free at 27 years old, because I knew that if I got into the room and kept my eyes open but my mouth shut and listened and asked, just only when I spoke, just ask questions to learn,
Yes.
then I started producing on my own. But it takes time, and when we're trying to change our life and overcome obstacles, like we had mentioned before, Marcus Aurelius, the obstacle is the way. You've got to push through. You've got to confront those, or they're going to chase you down. And then it's only a matter of time. You turn around. You're not ready for whatever it is that you need to face now, because there's no other way to dodge it. We're not ready, and we break. We broke with alcohol. Other people are going to be addicted to drugs, or maybe it's compulsive eating, or compulsive buying with Amazon. Now they're buying something new every day to do what? To replace a void in themselves for those temporary little dopamine fixes. But those are finite, right? Because we feel like those are positive feedback loops, but they're not, because the way our brain works is through the dopamine and serotonin and endorphins and all these other chemicals in our brain. The alcohol, we get dopamine hits on it, but it ultimately it drains us, so we don't have motivation. And so that cycle of the true positive feedback loop is broken.
Yeah.
And then it's just a never-ending cycle of destruction. And we go down into the abyss, and now we've got to climb our way out, provided we can look upwards from our back and see a little speck of light we can chase.
Yeah.
I
didn't understand that when I was boozing, like when I was drinking a Handle, which is like a 1.75 milliliters, for people who don't know that. It's a lot of booze, and I was drinking one of those every 2 to 3 days. Sometimes at the very end of it, like when I was hitting it as hard as I could, just basically trying to kill myself, because that's how depressed and lost I was at the very end of it. I noticed that I was pouring booze like to alleviate the anxiety of life. And what I didn't realize from like a neurochemical point of view was that the alcohol and the acetaldehyde that was damaging the liver cells and the brain cells, because that's what acetaldehyde is. It's just poison, straight poison. And that's what it was doing that to me. It was killing like the brain cells and in my liver cells as fast as possible. And then I noticed that like I had so much more anxiety, because the anxiety would compound on top of each other when I was thinking, because it would alleviate the anxiety like when I was wasted, but then I'd wake up in the morning and I would feel like my hair was on fire, and my skin was like as itchy as possible. Like everything, physical, emotional, everything was anxiety ridden in my life, everything. And I was living in that frequency for such a long time that I did not know anything else.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important when people do try it's perfect timing. You're going to be uncomfortable for a good chunk of this month. Like, I'm not going to lie, that first month is really tricky, but that first month is killer in the momentum of the potential momentum that you'll gain from the clarity of a sober mind. And then you'll start realizing like, why didn't I do this earlier? This feels so great. Like after you get through that 30 to 90 day hump, because that's what typically they call it the suck. The first couple months, 3 months is tough, but very, very worthwhile. I would say the most meaningful of all the time spent getting sober is those first initial 3 months, because you're figuring out who you are with a genuine, clear head, and there's nothing you can do about it. Something you can do about it. You have to force your way through it.
Yeah. So you've got your journaling in the morning, gratitude journal in the morning, and then in the evening, and then I'm sure you're watching. What else have you infused into your day-to-day life? So diet, working out.
Working out. Yeah. I watch what I eat. I make sure I'm always in like a calorie deficit, because it's so easy. So after I'm a 2-time transplant person. So in the medications they put you on, it is like insanely easy to put on weight. And I've always had like a weight issue, I feel like, ever since in my early 20s, because I just love to eat. And just, I'm an Italian. My mother, that's how she showed love, was food. So food to me is comfort. It's love. So I absolutely am obsessed with food. So for me, that was a huge component of staying as healthy as I can, is just watching what I'm eating, making sure it's high protein, not many carbs, like a few is good. But lots of fruits, lots of fresh vegetables, lean meats, that kind of stuff. and then you start feeling better, and then you start looking better, and then then you gain that confidence, to go through the world with a clear head, healthy body, right mind. It's killer, man. It's like there's nothing better. You feel like you're firing on so many different cylinders, where everyone else is kind of just has they're on first gear or whatever instead of fourth.
Yeah, and the difference in confidence I find tricky,
Mm-hmm.
and it's misleading, because especially in the sports world, I've been in the sports game for
You definitely know that
a
one.
long time, and
But just a pitcher, man, it's just you're the one who's like controlling the game,
that's the desert right there. That pitcher's mound is a desert, synonymous with the Old Testament, when the Israelites get put out on their own, like they think they're going somewhere great, but no, God sends them into the desert to kind of fend for themselves in a way. And that's what pitching is. It's lonely. It's isolated, and it's not like hitting. If a hitter strikes out, they go back into the dugout and they can hide amongst their teammates. But if you're having a bad game on the mound,
mm-hmm.
you're out there alone until that pitching coach comes and grabs you. And so with confidence, a lot of folks think that confidence can be read, and now they've got, you read about confidence, you have it, you fill out some worksheets, or you meditate, or whatever it is. But confidence, real, true, sustainable confidence, comes from experience.
Yes.
The action and the doing of such tasks, whatever that may be for ourselves. So people like us going through addiction, we have to go through it, come out the other side, and put in the work. Put in the work on the journaling, put in the work on the diet, on the health, on our health, working out, learning, studying. And
mm-hmm.
then before you know it, we're granted confidence. And that's hard to break.
Mm-hmm.
Real, true confidence. We understand what a bad day is, and we can feel it. We're aware of it because we gain self-awareness. And therefore, what does that mean? We can ask ourselves, well, I don't need to drink today because I know I can handle this bad day today. Because not every day is a great day. We all know that.
Well, a good little trick that I do, that hour power I was telling you about earlier, the first half hour, first last of the day, is in your head as you're waking up, and don't look at your phone. That's like the worst thing you can do. Stay away from your phone. Do not even have it. Put it in a different room. That's what I've been doing. I just leave my phone in a different room. So when I wake up, I'm like, instinctively go for it. But I'm like, oh, no, forgot it's not in here. Oh yeah, that's why. So and then I grab the journal, and then I start making notes, making healthy intentions and stuff like that. But yeah, it's you got to do that kind of stuff. You really do. You really got to go do that kind of stuff. You really get those intentions out and say, you know what, today's going to be a great day. It's going to be a great day. It's going to be a great day. And you just start saying it to yourself over and over, and like get into that frequency. I keep saying that word, and it's like woohooey, but I honestly believe it, man. And like, if you can put yourself into that higher frequency of like, this is the person that I want to be, and this is like the confidence I'm going to use to show up, even if it might be false confidence at one point, until you actually gain the authentic confidence. Do that. Like, put yourself in that frequency of vibration, because and you say like, I'm gonna have a good day today, and it's weird. Like, you start tricking yourself, like, oh yeah, that guy just cut me off. Like, whatever, I don't give a shit. And if you're working out or whatever, that even compounds the alleviation of the anxiety and making sure you have a good day. Because like, I don't know about you, man, but if someone were to cut me off and I haven't worked out in like 3 days, or I haven't eaten like McDonald's and crap like that, I'll get out of I want to get out of the car and smash someone's window. Like, that's how that's where I'm at. But if I'm doing these gratitude journals, if I'm putting those healthy intentions out in the morning, that power of hour every day, and I'm not looking at my phone first half hour and just saying to myself over and over and over again, like, hey man, hey Will, today's gonna be an awesome day. Like, look at it, you gotta kill it today, like whatever. And it sounds self-righteous and a little more like boasty, but it's coming from a place of genuine love for yourself. That's where it's coming from, and that's what people need more of in their lives. It's just genuine love for who they are, because everyone's special, man. You gotta celebrate that.
Yeah, we all have our unique talents too. So if anybody thinks that they don't have a talent, they're just not looking hard enough, because we all have a talent.
Yep.
We all have a talent, and one way a lot of people chase happy, and I'm more inclined to chase joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because happy's fleeting. Happy comes and goes.
And happy's boring. Honestly, if you really think about it, happy someone can make, $58,000 a year or whatever, and be in a one-person apartment and watch, Family Guy all day and be happy, I guess, right? But is that really happiness?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. No, I would say no. I mean, and I like the term content, like I had a therapist ask me like, are you happy now that you're sober? And I just said no, but I'm content.
Yeah.
I'm okay. And you touched on that inner dialogue piece, which is so important, how we speak to ourselves,
Oh, it's
it
huge.
is so important that we are our own worst enemies more times than we're not.
Right.
Our limiting belief system, we don't infuse a growth mindset. People don't even know. What I found over coaching a bunch of folks is they don't really know where to start. It's like when you walk into Barnes and Nobles, most people they walk right into the fiction section of the books. They're not going to the self-help. Men are going to go look at and pick a book out for history. Women are going to go to fiction. Those are escaping type elements. Now, of course, you can learn with history, of course, but where's the self-help? Where's the breath work? Where's the motivation type books to help ourselves, right? Because it's now my view that living in an intrinsic lifestyle in many ways, which is taking care of myself first. And back to your point, like it sounds selfish and it sounds self-righteous to tell myself that I'm going to have a great day,
Right.
and I am good, and I am talented, and I am a contributing member of society who causes no harm and tries my best to see the best in others, but I can't have any of that perspective and point of view without taking care of myself first.
Yeah, you can't. You gotta work. And that negative self-talk, man, it is lethal. Like you could have a day where, your people are saying hi to you at work, whatever, and you're like, oh, yeah, and like you're having a great day, and then you've had like 9 different blessings, like someone bought your coffee or whatever in front of you, or someone, said a very kind thing about a shirt that you were wearing or whatever. And that's happening all throughout the day if you're paying attention to it. But for some reason, we focus on that one, negative thing, like, oh, my boss, I know it. Like he said that one flippant thing at the end of the meeting or whatever. And that's all you think of, and that's all you dwell on. And then you go back into that frequency, and that frequency is dangerous because now you're just attracting more negativity. Whereas if you just focus on the positives of that day, like that lady who bought your coffee and things like that, those little blessings, you'll start noticing really quickly that if you put your attention and your mindfulness on that positive thing that happened to you, like you can start getting into that cycle of thinking.
Yeah, you can rewire your brain.
Yes.
I mean the advancements in neuroscience,
yeah, I'm living
now
for that, man. I was the most pessimistic, narcissistic, craziest person ever when it came to just everything in life. It was crazy, and it took a lot of work. I'm still working on it, man. It's not like it's gone, but I make the very intentional effort to break that cycle. And it's difficult, but it's so rewarding when you practice it enough.
Are you able to catch yourself? Like, for example, one thing that I do is I have to go get my daughter from school, or I have to go work out, or I have to go train these athletes at this other facility I'm involved with. But I've changed that framing to I get to.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
do you have anything? So I get to go pick my kids up, which infuses a little spirit of luck, or optimism. Right.
Yeah.
Positivity, forward movement. Do you have anything that
it's funny you said that. The universe is funny though, because if you start thinking that way, and that's a great little thing you just mentioned, but I get to do that. But if you do it in like a self-serving way, like I get to do that, and then you're like, where are the blessings? Like, where are the good things? Like you start
that's
thinking
dark,
of like and I do that too. Like I'll be like, look at me, like look how awesome I am. Like I just helped that lady like move her. I did this the other day. I was driving by. I helped some lady move. I saw her struggling putting groceries into her apartment or whatever. And I pulled over and I'm like, hey, ma'am, do you need help? And she's like, yes, that would be so well. Wow, that's amazing. And I felt so good after. And I was like, wow, like what? Look at me. I'm such a good. And like, I'm like, shit, I just ruined it. Like, I ruined it because I started thinking of it from a place of like, look how awesome, look how helpful I am. Like, I must be this great guy. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, I did. That was a nice thing you just did. Like, most people would not do that. So, so even if you start thinking like that's just like what I do, I start thinking like, well, look how self-righteous you are. You're being like conceited or whatever, or looking at it from a perspective that you shouldn't be. But no, like it's good to just do the good things, and then the more good things you do, the more of that frequency. Like I was saying earlier, you'll get back into that. If you're just pursuing it from like the genuine place,
Yeah, and celebrating your wins.
celebrating. Yeah,
Celebrating wins. That's a win. When you help somebody else out, everybody loves to be helped. And we love to help too.
yeah.
Most folks love to
Well,
help
most
other
people will
people.
give you really good advice, but they won't listen to their own advice in their own lives.
Isn't that funny?
Isn't that crazy?
I'm certainly guilty of that.
Mm-hmm.
You are. I know you
Oh,
are
God,
too. It's like,
yeah,
we both
I'll
are.
give you the best advice ever, but I won't follow it.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
that's because that's the negative self-talk loop that I was just associated with from a lot of that can stem from childhood, but yeah, you got to break that cycle, man. Breaking that cycle is so important.
What's if something does come to mind here, what's the one, where have you improved the most? Like for anybody watching this, right, who's overcome something extremely difficult, they still may be lost, or maybe they're supporting somebody else that is going through times like we've gone through, especially what you've gone through. Now that you're clear, now that you're on the other side of this whole thing, looking back, where do you feel like you've grown most? Like giving somebody else hope, for example, like you're paying attention to what you eat, you're working out, you're showing gratitude on a daily basis to yourself and your wife and your mother and those who you
Mm-hmm.
love. You're helping people out in the community.
It's not even just them either. It's people in the street. Like I go out of my way to make a concentrated effort to just say thank you to everyone. Just be kind to everybody. Because especially around this time of year, it can get, especially in New England here where I am in Boston, it gets dark and people get really kind of chippy and resentful like very quickly. So the more love, I call them love bombs. Like I'll just I'll just drop like a very kind comment that someone would never ever say to someone on the street or whatever. You're like, hey, like I really appreciate you do even something really small like that. I noticed that I'll just like scare people with a love bomb. I'll just drop a love bomb. But yeah, getting back to the point of like what am I most like
what have you recognized? Like what have you recognized from your growth? Like somebody who's either in the throes of addiction and looking to get out of it, like looking back, where can you pat yourself on the back and give somebody else hope and say, look, if you're going through a hard time, if you stick with it,
yeah,
in a year, you're going to feel like this. Is it the love bombs? Is it just waking up every morning saying like, man, I know I put the work in? What do you have anything that you kind of, from an advice standpoint?
Yeah, man, I think it's so important to practice mindful meditation when you are doing something really difficult like that. So like meditation for me is a huge practice, even though I was slacking before the new year, but now that I'm in a good rhythm, I can talk about it more authentically. And I find it meditation and being present. Like I always wear my little green band, which is the band they give you when someone saves your life. It says donate life, and it's for the New England Donor Services. UNOS is also the main corporation that is the donor services company. But I look at this is like the thing that I always look at, and it reminds me of like how far I've come. But yeah, the being mindful, like that book right over there, the Ram Dass Be Here Now. It's like a very famous book from the 70s. And that was his motto, was just be here now, be present, be mindful of like your surroundings, because the more mindful you are of every single daily occurrences, the more presence and awareness you can bring to that situation, instead of like reacting just from like a monkey brain reacting. You're reacting from like a place of presence and gratitude and connection. And there, I never from ages 20 to 36 up to the transplant itself, I never practiced anything like that. And now that I've noticed like such a big consequential shift in my perspective at life and in sobriety, especially because when I'm feeling those cravings and those things are coming on, like this is my advice here, is like when you're being mindful, when you're being succumb to those cravings that happen so often and they're so frequent, especially with alcohol everywhere it is, to take like a 5-minute TO, like a timeout, and just take some deep breathing, some mindful meditation quickly. You know, you don't have to be weird and like being in like a lotus position. You can just do it in your car, sitting upright, like,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I usually do. But yeah, that is so important. Keeping track of those mindful moments in really tough situations and knowing that like I'm in control. Like it's not like I'm not like just a robot who just has to fly to alcohol or whatever you're on. I'm very aware of like, okay, like you're tougher than this, Will. Like, you don't need that. You just get through the next. You don't have to drink tonight, right? And that's like how I always frame. Like, you don't need to drink tonight because what's tonight? You know, it's already 5:00. You know, soon it'll be 7. Then soon it'll be 9. Then I didn't drink, and that's how I approach sobriety. It's like a night by night basis. Like everyone says, one day at a time, but sometimes the one day almost can seem a little too overbearing and daunting at times. So I like to take it like, you know, just tonight, I don't need to drink, you know, and that really surprisingly works.
Yeah. I want to come back to the meditation piece here in a minute,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
those little, you know, those, I've done a lot of studying and I'm no psychologist, but I do love the field. It's really interesting on human behavior, why we make the
Me too.
decisions,
Love it.
you know, that we make. And Jordan Peterson, who I know you follow
I'm
too, is
obsessed
like,
with them.
you know, those that, you know, Eric, you don't need a drink right now, right?
Yeah.
Those are like little, it's not me. It's not Eric Fisher, me. It's like a little spirit that grips us and takes us over, right? And the way you can liken it to a fight with, let's say, your wife or a great friend. And before you know it, the fight's over and you don't even know what you said.
Yeah.
And then you leave and then you come back to that other person and he or she says like, did you even realize what you said to me?
Mm-hmm.
Did you even realize X, Y, and Z? These 3 things really hurt me. They were nasty. They were filthy. And I've been in the situation where it's like, you know, I don't even really remember saying that, because you're in the heat of the moment. You're taken over by this spirit that is intrusive to the true you. And
I said, not to cut you off there, but a personal story in the exact same situation. I didn't talk to one of my older brothers for a whole year, and I had no idea. I just knew he was mad at me. But then when I finally got sober and I came up to him, I was like, Andrew, like, what's going on? Why are we, what's the situation here, man? Like, why are we in such an argument, like a fight? And he's like, do you not remember? And I had no idea what I said to him. And I said something really, really like genuinely like very unkind. You know, I said, I guess this is what I said. I said like, you know, because my family's here in the East Coast and he's out in the West. And, you know, I basically told him like, you abandoned us, like you abandoned Dad, you mom. And I didn't, like, that's some really harsh stuff to say to someone who, you know, he didn't do anything wrong. He has his own family in Denver. But like I was just a very mean, hurtful comment, and I didn't even know it because of my alcohol addiction. I just said it. I must have I started thinking about that. I'm like, I must have said so many of those things. So then once I got sober, I started to call people that I'm close with and say, I'm not sure what I'm apologizing for yet, but I know that there's probably something, and I just want to say I'm sorry. I want to make amends and say it in like the most genuine way possible. And with a lot of heart. That's important. Make sure you don't lose the heart. But yeah, that was tough, man. It was a tough situation to be in when you don't even remember the hurtful thing that you said or did.
Yeah. And those are those spirits, you know, I really do. I can't articulate it like the famous and wise Jordan Peterson, but those are like these little spirits that capture us and take us over. And then that goes back to this meditation piece that you're mentioning, because I meditate as well, probably not as often as you do or as often as I should, but that's a time. I think our brain has about 7.3 seconds to evaluate a feeling and then either dispose of it or grab onto it and integrate it into the action that we're about to take on it. So meditation helps create awareness and mindfulness. And then also I think there's a misconception with meditation in that it's time consuming, it's isolating. Like, you put us in your world for the viewers and listeners. Like, when you meditate, you mentioned that you were just in your car.
Dude, I do
sometimes.
5-minute, 10-minute meditations. You put on your AirPods or whatever you got and just or in just the stereo in your car, man. You don't even need it like a meditation. You just take 5 minutes of just straight silence and just focus on your breath. Like you'll come out of just 5-minute meditations or just, that's a little too fast, but yeah, like 3 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Like if you just keep doing that, you'll just feel like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. Like, and all it takes is 5 minutes. And think about like the amount of time that we spend on our phones or like doing mindless bullshit, watching crap on TV or whatever, mindless, anything. When you do things like that and you start putting those practices into your life and implementing them in like very strategic ways for like when things arise, you'll notice like that was only 5 minutes and I feel like a different person like right now. But you have to keep doing that because that fading, that will fade. And then you just jump back into it whenever things are getting a little too overwhelming or chaotic.
Yeah. So you can just pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you meditate like that? Those little 5-minute chunks
I do
couple
those
times
through the
a
day.
day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do those multiple times a day. I do. I do that a lot is in line. Whenever I'm in line, like at the grocery store, at whatever, dude. Like whenever you're in line, anything in your life, whenever you're waiting, that's the best time to meditate because it sucks already, and you might as well use that time resourcefully, right? Like use that for your benefit. Like just take that time because then you'll notice like I had this lady in front of me who was like writing a fucking check like to buy her groceries. I'm like, do they even take checks anymore? I guess this is crazy. But you know what? Because of my mindfulness practice that I've been doing, I just was like, okay, I'm like, be here now. Like this lady, I have no idea what she's going through. Who knows? Maybe she's like writing a check that she can't afford and she's using a different account. That's why she has to use this check. So like start thinking that way. And then all of a sudden you start like noticing, I kind of love this lady. Like I want to like help her instead of like the old me who would have been like, Jesus, this lady, like get on it. Like I need to go like this. I'm in a rush. But when you slow things down, because this is a really big point, but when you really go on the macro level of life and reality and like, what is the purpose of life? Like no one's really going anywhere. Like we don't even know why we're here on this planet to begin with. So you might as well enjoy it. And the ways to enjoy it is by being very mindful and present and appreciative and loving to those around you. And it's just going to make the ride a lot more smoother.
And feel slower too.
Yeah. Because there's really nowhere to go.
Yeah.
There's only one place to go, and that's the inevitable death of our ego, or I hope. And then who knows if you reincarnate or whatever? We don't know that answer. At least I don't. Maybe you do. I don't.
I do not.
But that's the thing. Like no one knows. So you might as well take this time that we do have, this short amount, this brief experience, this blip of this incarnation that we're in, and use it in a way that's very equally beneficial to the universe and you, and how to navigate this chaotic existence that we're thrown into.
Yeah. I do believe that what you put out, you will receive.
Oh yeah. 100%.
I mean, it's reciprocal that way. I do believe the universe, if you do the right thing and tell the truth and cause no harm, you will be rewarded, and the money piece of it, a lot of folks think, oh, well, it'd be money. I want money. But that's a byproduct of being intentional with everything that you do. Like one thing that I do to help me really feel in control and slow down is when I'm driving. I was a really fast driver.
You look like a really fast driver.
Man, I was in that fast lane. But what I've done on purpose, and I just naturally, if we're aware, if we pay attention to these sort of things, we can infuse them seamlessly into our life, like you are with meditation, while we're in line, these little 5-minute pieces. When I'm driving, I purposefully will go in the right lane, where the slow lane, and I'll go behind the slowest driver. When I'm feeling, now you have to be in tune with your body, like when I'm feeling that anxiety and I'm feeling kind of a little bit disoriented in a way, I'll make sure sometimes I've even just gotten in the car and purposefully done this just to get out of the house, is go behind a slow moving car and listen to some music that's peaceful music. And if it's a nice day, roll the windows down a little bit, get some fresh air, and just breathe.
Yeah.
If I'm taking my daughter out somewhere, and I've gotten good enough to where my daughters can be in the backseat kind of goofing around, and I can be in my own space in my head and just breathe. And that centers me. Let my thoughts go in one ear, out the other, which is not to catch and hold on to a thought. Just that's a meditative type practice as well. Letting the thoughts just kind of flow in and out of our brain without holding on to them. And it's remarkable because it doesn't take long. To your point, it doesn't take long to refocus, if you want to call it that.
There's such amazing ways to recenter yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious. And you feel like you don't know what to do and everything's boiling up. I would say sunlight is like so important. Like if you can, I know right now it sucks because like I'm not getting much sunlight right now. It's January in Boston. It's very depressing and daft. But at the same time, and like I'll search out sunlight, and once that sunlight hits my face, I let it get me as much as it can and get all that vitamin D and I suck it all up. And when I'm feeling really crappy, I'll notice that just going on like a 5-minute walk is like, it sounds so silly and stupid, and it's not like that mentally taxing or physically taxing. It's just a walk. But go around the block, come back, and then then make the decision or the phone call or whatever. Just take a 5-minute walk before you react on anything. It's so important. So important.
Yeah, walking is going for a 5-10 minute walk, like you said. What happens that I've noticed is I start to realize that leaves are not just green. They're all different types of colors.
Mm-hmm. So and it's cool, the leaves thing. You can actually like look at leaves and be like, wow, look at that brown one. Like that one's about to die, but look at that green one, like almost about to sprout, and it's cool.
Yeah,
so you start looking at things in like a very like as above, so below perspective. And then it changes the moment. You start like
changes the moment.
You see the beauty in it. Picture. Yeah.
You see the beauty in nature. You see the beauty in life. You see the squirrels, bouncing around, and the trees and the birds, and you don't just see them as one specific thing. You see them as, one thing that I understood is like, in terms of growth, is grass and a tree all start out the same, but a tree grows much larger than grass, although they're both planted in the same dirt. And so if we can be the plant and the tree growing upwards and onwards, capturing that sunlight and photosynthesis and, and everything else, we're much more stable because our roots are deeper. That's Stoic philosophy too, surrounding yourself with the universe and nature.
Yeah. And just balance. Balance is a very, like, people like to talk about balance in life as it's like an easy thing. It's not. It's something that is so vitally important to maintain a healthy perspective and way of living. Because if you say you have a lot of balance in like your checkbook, you have tons of money. Oh, wow, look how much money I have. But your relationship, your marriage is like suffering. Like, then you got to put some effort into that. Or I'm eating too much, then you put some effort into that. So like balance is everything in life. It's like everything. You just have to have a good relationship with money, good relationship with people, just a good relationship with everything in your life. Just have a good relationship with it, no matter what it is, even if it sucks. Try to make a good relationship, because having balance in life is like instrumental when it comes to success and happy and peace and all that great stuff.
Yeah. Because people chase the wrong things. People chase the money, or they chase the car, or they want the fancy watch. But once you're making like $80,000 a year, maybe less, depending on what it is, what your overhead is. But once you make enough money where you can pay your bills, things are not going to change for you, really. If you have $1 million or you've got 50 grand a year or whatever that case is. So balance is key, and being aware. So what is next for you? I know you got your podcast. I know you're in a good place. You've got a loving wife. You got a great little dog. What's next for you? Like, what does the next like year hold for
Great
you?
question, man.
Speaking, are you going to go into some speaking?
Yeah, Eric.
Influence others?
Big things, man. Like, yeah. So off air, I was telling you that tomorrow is my first public speaking gig. Super nervous about it, but super excited, man. It's something new. It's something different. It's going to be challenging. I'm probably going to suck at it. Who knows? But I am going to do it. I said I'd do it, so I'm going to do it. And that's going to be exciting. And hopefully maybe that will branch off into more public speaking gigs. Who knows? But right now I'm just kind of focusing on bettering myself, becoming the more true, authentic Will that as I possibly can. I've done so much damage in my life, and so many people I've let down, and what do you do when you get a second chance at life? And you gotta grab it by the bull with the horns or whatever, right? And ride the wave, man, because life is short. And now I'm excited for everything. So I hope my channel takes off. I hope people start tuning in. I'm going to start making a lot more personal videos. Like, I feel like those are like what I'm lacking with on my channel. And I think there's a lot happening, and I'm just so genuinely excited about something, because I haven't felt like this in 20 years. I haven't felt like this. Like, I just have had nothing. I've had very little wins, and a lot of turmoil and a lot of angst. And it's been a tough journey. But as crazy as it sounds, man, like having that liver transplant and going through hell and all the complications and the kidney transplant as well, it's like that was my journey, man. Like, that was my journey. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but that was my journey. And I went through hell, and I came out the other side, and I'm just trying to pursue anything that I find genuine joy and excitement in, coming from a serving perspective, not an ego-driven perspective. I want to serve. That's like very important to me, to help others, because that's the name of the game, man. The more you help, the better off you're going to feel, the better off people are going to feel, and the better off, the world will be. It sounds corny, but it's true. Like, the more we're willing to be givers, not takers.
Yeah, huge. Agreed. And you're doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah.
I love your podcast. That's how we met.
Yeah.
I watch your videos.
Your podcast, like I said off air, your podcast right now, the episode's killing it. You're like one of the best ones. So check it out.
Yeah,
go check out Eric's podcast on my channel.
Everybody go to Will's, the Willpower Podcast.
Willpower Podcast, all in one word.
Yeah.
Yep.
The people you have on, number one, you're a great host. I love the questions. You're curious.
I don't really write anything down. I kind of just go with it.
No, but I think it makes it real.
Yeah,
it makes it real. People want to see real.
People talk. You want to listen to how people talk. You don't want to I feel like the more free flowing it is, like our conversation right now, the better off, the more inclined that people are able to tune in, because that's how conversations go. It's not just like,
and that's why your podcast is growing. That's why your podcast is growing so quick, because you have good guests on, you ask great questions, and you're integrated too. You're not reading from some bullshit teleprompter and being how you think other people want you to be. It's like, you're just yourself. And I love it, because I watch your podcast. I see the guests you have on. I see your shorts on Instagram, and then it kicks me over to the actual like long form on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it. So if anybody's curious, check your podcast.
Like, it is not polished whatsoever. I mean, I'm such a newbie, and I was already terrible with technology to begin with, but I'm learning, man. Like, I'm putting I'm really putting my ass into this thing. I'm going through it, man. Like, I really want to succeed in this thing. So I'm working on it, but it is, I think it's getting a little better as the time, has gone on since, what did I start? Early September, end of August. So it's been a couple months now, but I think it's getting some traction.
Yeah, but a couple months, and you've got almost 10,000 followers.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And your last video, you told me, got 90,000 views that you were a guest on.
I was a guest on. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're doing something right, because we've all heard the stories about starting a YouTube podcast.
Not
you've
easy.
been doing this for years and not getting any traction.
It's a lot of competition.
I think like that.
See, it's hard to stand up.
I think you're killing it.
Thanks, Eric. That really means a lot, man. I really appreciate it, because I respect who you are. I respect your journey. I respect what you're doing right now with your channel, man. That takes some guts, man. That's not easy to throw yourself out there and be vulnerable in front of the world like that. So, I commend you on that, man. And I feel the same way, towards you, man. I think you're gonna, because you've gone through so much and you've dealt with such adversity in your life, and you've handled it in such the right way now, that I think that you're just you're gonna kill it, man. You're gonna rock it.
Well, we'll see what happens. I appreciate those kind of words, brother. Thank you.
Of course.
But it's trial by fire in many ways. You go through hell. We end up in the abyss, looking upwards from our back, and decide that it's time to stand up and start moving.
Time to stand up. Time to speak your voice, man. Own it, right? Own your authenticity. Own your purpose in life. Find that thing that excites you. Pursue those dreams and activities that you want. Challenge yourself. That's a huge one. Get out there, do things that you're not good at. That's like if I could give like any advice, I would say pursue things that you're not good at, because even in those failures, you'll learn so much about your who you are. You just learn about, go through, fail as much in this and as possible. Honest to God, failing has such a weird connotation with like, of not living a life correctly. I totally disagree. I think the more you can fail at things and learn from the processes of that failure in itself, the more growth will happen. The more genuine, authentic growth will just come out of you. You gotta fail. Gotta
fail hard.
Gotta
fail often. I've got nothing after that. That's good. That's good. All right. Well, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation with Mr. Will Gordon from the Will Power Podcast.
Tune in brother.
To him, find him. He's all over social media. We'll drop everything down. We'll drop everything down in the description.
Instagram at the Will Power Podcast, YouTube at the Will Power Podcast, and there's a million Will Power podcasts. So you gotta look for my mug, big nose, big stupid glasses usually because my eyes are going. I gotta get some contacts, man. I can't say it. Like right now, it's not bad because my tacrolimus medication usually makes my eyes blurry, but right now it's not that bad. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm with you. My eyes are going too. If anything like gets in here on me, it's been so blurry. All right, brother. It's great to catch up.
You too, man. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, everybody, for watching.
Yeah. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.